One wrong step, one moment of misplaced trust. That's all it took to turn romantic getaways into the 6 most horrifying couple deaths ever recorded. These aren't just tragic accidents. They're chilling reminders that when 2 lives are intertwined, fate can claim them both in an instant, and the most ordinary moments become the deadliest traps. It was May 23, 2016, when 2 experienced hikers embarked on what should have been a routine Memorial Day weekend adventure at Zion National Park in Utah. Garrett Lowe, a 29-year-old logistics coordinator known for his methodical approach, had been looking forward to this trip for months. His partner, Nathaniel Brooks, 28, worked in community health services and shared Garrett's passion for outdoor exploration, though he was typically more cautious about weather conditions. The pair arrived at the park as storm clouds gathered, posted warnings at the trailhead mentioned potential wind gusts, and advised extreme caution on exposed sections, particularly the chain-assisted spine leading to Angel's Landing summit. Despite the advisories, both men felt confident, having completed several challenging hikes together over the past 2 years. The ascent to Scout Lookout proceeded without incident, but conditions deteriorated as they approached the narrow ridge section. Wind gusts were building to 25 to 35 miles per hour, with occasional spikes reported above 40 miles per hour, enough to push conditions beyond the usual advisory threshold and create unpredictable crosswinds along the exposed sandstone spine. A thin layer of sand had accumulated on the smooth rock surface, significantly reducing traction for hikers wearing standard trail boots. As they entered the chain-assisted section, holiday weekend crowds created bottlenecks at narrow passages. The combination of gusty conditions and congested trails forced quick decisions about positioning. When descending hikers approached, Garrett and Nathaniel stepped to the right side of the ledge to allow passage, maintaining 3-point contact with the fixed chain and rock face. The accident occurred during this routine passing maneuver. A sudden, stronger gust coincided with the movement of other hikers in the confined space. Garrett's right boot lost purchase on the sandy sandstone surface just as his grip on the dusty chain link weakened. The brief loss of contact shifted his center of mass outward, beyond the narrow ledge's margin of safety. Nathaniel, positioned directly behind, attempted to maintain his stance with one hand on the chain. However, the same combination of wind, crowded conditions, and compromised footing affected his stability. As Garrett began to fall, the movement on the precarious ledge caused Nathaniel's boot to skid on the sandy surface. Both men fell approximately 1,000 feet down the steep embankment below the chain section. The rocky terrain included multiple outcrops that caused severe blunt force trauma during their descent. Other hikers immediately called 911, but the remote location and challenging terrain complicated rescue efforts. Park rangers responded with a helicopter team, temporarily closing the chain section. Due to persistent wind gusts, the team held at a staging area for several hours, waiting for conditions to stabilize before beginning the recovery. The coroner's report listed the cause of death as multiple blunt force trauma consistent with a high-elevation fall. Toxicology results showed no substance involvement, confirming this was purely an environmental accident. The investigation identified contributing factors: overcrowding, crosswinds exceeding normal parameters, and sand-reducing traction. Following this incident, park management implemented safety improvements. Rangers began more frequent sand removal during peak periods. Additional wind warning signage was installed closer to the chain section, and visitor education programs emphasized weather awareness and crowd management. This tragedy highlighted the inherent risks of high-elevation hiking, even for experienced outdoor enthusiasts. Despite proper preparation, environmental factors and human congestion created conditions that overwhelmed safety margins, resulting in the loss of 2 lives on what began as a celebratory holiday weekend adventure. It was January 14th, 2017, when a frigid Chicago evening turned deadly for 2 women sharing a 5th-floor apartment in the near North Side. Vanessa Quinn, a 32-year-old administrative professional known for her meticulous organization, had been looking forward to a quiet night indoors with her partner. Chloe Patterson, 33, worked in food service and was known for her practical, hands-on approach to solving problems around their shared living space. The couple had been dealing with intermittent power fluctuations that week during Chicago's harsh winter months. Temperatures had plummeted to single digits, putting enormous strain on the electrical grid. Their building management had posted reminders about maintaining proper clearances around heating devices, but the women were focused more on staying warm. That evening, they decided to supplement their apartment's central heating with a portable electric space heater. Chloe positioned the unit near a window where they often sat. The heater was plugged into an extension cord rated for typical household appliances, but not designed for the sustained high-wattage draw of heating equipment. What neither woman realized was that their smoke detector had been chirping due to a low battery. A previous tenant had taped over the device to muffle the sound, a dangerous modification that remained unnoticed. The building's hallway smoke detection system was functional, but wouldn't detect problems within individual units until smoke had already spread. The tragedy began when another power fluctuation occurred that evening. The brief voltage dip caused the heater to cycle, creating additional heat at the plug connection. Meanwhile, fabric drapes hanging near the window were positioned closer to the heater than the recommended 3-foot clearance. A draft through the window seam caused the curtain material to sway, bringing it into contact with the heater's hot front grille. The lower edge of the drape began to char, then burst into flames. Burning droplets fell onto a cardboard storage box positioned beneath the window, igniting additional materials. Within minutes, the fire had spread to upholstered furniture, particularly a couch containing foam cushions that produced dense, toxic smoke. By the time the hallway alarm system detected the emergency, smoke had already filled much of the apartment's living space. The women attempted to reach their front door, but the smoke layer had descended to breathing level, creating dangerous visibility conditions. Heat from the rapidly spreading fire made the exit route increasingly difficult to navigate. The fire department responded within minutes, but the 5th-floor location required ladder truck positioning. Firefighters began ventilation procedures through the apartment windows, while interior crews worked to locate and extract the occupants. The coroner's report determined that both women died primarily from smoke inhalation, with elevated carbon monoxide levels consistent with exposure to combustion byproducts. They had succumbed to toxic smoke before the fire reached their location. The investigation revealed multiple contributing factors: the undersized extension cord that created heat buildup, the clearance violation with combustible drapes positioned too close to the heating element, and the disabled smoke detector that failed to provide early warning. Following this incident, building management replaced all smoke detectors and distributed guidelines about space heater safety. The local fire department launched a community education campaign emphasizing the dangers of extension cord use with heating appliances. This tragedy underscored how quickly residential fires can become fatal. The combination of delayed detection, toxic smoke production, and compromised egress routes overwhelmed the women's ability to survive what began as a simple attempt to stay warm during Chicago's brutal winter weather. It was December 19th, 2015, when a routine holiday drive turned into a deadly chain reaction on the outskirts of Duluth, Minnesota. Spencer Tate, a 27-year-old information technology support specialist known for his attention to detail, was behind the wheel of his compact sedan. His partner, Eli Turner, 26, worked as a retail supervisor and was typically punctual, though he was unfamiliar with this particular stretch of Interstate 35. The couple was making their annual pre-Christmas journey to visit family. Weather forecasts had mentioned the possibility of light freezing drizzle, but road conditions appeared manageable when they departed. Spencer's sedan was equipped with all-season tires, adequate for most winter driving but not designed for ice conditions. As evening approached, temperatures began oscillating around the critical 30-degree mark, creating ideal conditions for black ice formation. Road advisory signs had warned drivers about icy conditions on bridges and overpasses, but the transparent nature of black ice made it virtually invisible to approaching motorists. Traffic flow was moderate that evening, with a mix of passenger vehicles and commercial trucks typical for holiday travel season. The presence of heavy tractor-trailers added complexity, as their longer stopping distances made them particularly vulnerable to sudden changes. The accident sequence began when a pickup truck ahead of Spencer encountered a patch of black ice near an overpass. The driver lost traction and began to slow abruptly. Spencer, Maintaining what he believed was a safe following distance, applied his brakes gently and attempted to steer around the slower vehicle. However, a box truck following behind Spencer's sedan had been traveling too closely for the deteriorating conditions. When Spencer's brake lights illuminated, the truck driver realized he could not stop in time. The massive commercial vehicle struck the rear of Spencer's compact car at interstate speed, consistent with the 65 miles per hour traffic flow typical for that section of I-35, generating a high-energy impact. The initial collision rotated Spencer's sedan into the left lane, where it was immediately struck by another vehicle. This sideswipe pushed the damaged car toward the concrete median barrier, where it came to rest after sustaining multiple impacts. The rear-end collision caused significant structural intrusion into the passenger compartment. Multiple airbags deployed throughout the vehicle, but the severity of the impact overwhelmed the car's safety systems. Both occupants experienced rapid deceleration forces that exceeded survivable limits, despite being properly restrained. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the technical nature of the extrication required specialized tools to access the severely damaged passenger compartment. State troopers immediately closed the highway in both directions and began applying sand and salt to the overpass area. The coroner's report listed the cause of death for both men as blunt force trauma associated with a high-energy rear impact. One victim lost airway patency before advanced medical care could be provided, while the other sustained non-survivable internal injuries. Investigation revealed that data from the truck's event recorder showed the commercial vehicle had been following at insufficient distance. Road surface analysis confirmed the presence of black ice at the overpass location. Following this incident, the Department of Transportation implemented enhanced safety measures, including increased de-icing patrols at bridge approaches and temporary warning signage during cold snaps. This tragedy highlighted the deadly combination of black ice, inadequate following distances, and the vulnerability of smaller vehicles in multi-vehicle collisions. Despite Spencer's careful driving, the actions of other drivers created a situation that overwhelmed normal safety margins, transforming a holiday journey into a fatal accident. It was February 3, 2018, when a romantic winter getaway turned into a silent tragedy at a rental cabin on the south shore of Lake Tahoe, California. Lila Harmon, a 34-year-old freelance designer known for her orderly habits and minimalist lifestyle, had been looking forward to this ski weekend for weeks. Her partner, Sierra Dalton, 35, worked as an educator and was methodical in her approach to planning, always bringing backup supplies for their outdoor adventures. The couple had booked the off-season rental to take advantage of lower rates and fewer crowds. They arrived after dark when temperatures had plummeted into single digits, creating one of the coldest nights the region had experienced that winter. The cabin's listing mentioned that the central heating system had been recently serviced. What neither woman noticed was a carbon monoxide detector mounted on the wall, with tape covering its low battery warning light. Previous guests had mentioned this issue in an online review printout left in the unit, but the detail was easily overlooked. The heating system consisted of an older, vented gas heater located in a utility closet. While recently inspected, visible discoloration around the exterior vent cap suggested potential combustion issues. More critically, heavy snowfall had created a substantial drift that partially covered the exterior vent, restricting proper exhaust flow. That evening, the women set the thermostat to 72 degrees and settled in for what they expected to be a cozy night before hitting the slopes. The heater cycled frequently due to the extreme outside temperature and partial vent obstruction. As the night progressed, impeded exhaust flow caused combustion byproducts to recirculate into the cabin's living spaces. With all windows closed against the bitter cold and ventilation fans turned off, there was no active air exchange to dilute the accumulating carbon monoxide. The colorless, odorless gas built up steadily throughout the night as the heating system continued its frequent cycling. Carbon monoxide poisoning is particularly insidious because early symptoms often mimic fatigue or altitude effects, both expected after travel at Lake Tahoe's elevation. As concentration increased, both women would have experienced drowsiness and eventually lost consciousness without realizing the danger. By early morning, both had become non-responsive in the main living area. The tragedy was discovered when a neighbor, noting the couple's vehicle hadn't moved with no signs of activity, contacted the property manager. The manager performed a welfare check and found both women unresponsive. Emergency services were called immediately, and first responders measured dangerously high carbon monoxide levels upon entering. The gas supply was shut off, the heater tagged out of service, and fire department personnel used positive pressure fans to ventilate the structure. The coroner's report determined both women died from carbon monoxide poisoning, with blood levels consistent with prolonged exposure. Investigators later noted that snow accumulation around vent exhausts is a known hazard in mountain rentals, especially when guests arrive after dark and do not perform exterior checks. No signs of trauma were present, confirming this was purely environmental poisoning. Investigation identified multiple contributing factors: the disabled detector with removed battery and taped warning indicator, the snow-obstructed exterior vent preventing proper exhaust, and inadequate pre-arrival safety inspection. Following this incident, the property owner was mandated to install sealed carbon monoxide alarms and implement regular snow clearance checks for exterior vents during winter months. This tragedy underscored the critical importance of functional carbon monoxide detection in any structure with fuel-burning appliances, particularly during winter months when ventilation is reduced and heating systems operate continuously. It was August 12, 2016, when what began as a short sightseeing adventure turned into a deadly encounter with nature's raw power near Page, Arizona. Connor Briggs, a 30-year-old automotive technician known for his mechanical aptitude, had extensive experience with desert driving but limited knowledge of technical canyoneering. His partner, Jacob Reeves, 29, worked as a barista and was known for his calm, observant nature. While comfortable with day hikes, neither man had significant experience navigating slot canyons. The couple had planned this trip during Arizona's monsoon season, drawn by the dramatic lighting that summer storms could bring. Their plan was simple: enter the remote slot canyon for photography, then exit well before afternoon thunderstorms typically developed. When they arrived that morning, the weather appeared favorable with partly cloudy skies. However, slot canyon walls severely restrict horizon visibility, making it difficult to monitor approaching weather. By late morning, distant thunder could be heard echoing off the canyon walls, and radar systems 20 miles upstream were tracking building storm cells. The slot canyon they had chosen was known for its narrow passages and dramatic rock formations, but also for its dangerous pour-offs and shallow depressions that could trap rapidly moving water. These geological features created natural choke points where debris and water could accumulate with devastating force. They entered the canyon when the sandy floor was completely dry and conditions seemed stable. The towering sandstone walls rose hundreds of feet above them. What they couldn't see was the weather system rapidly approaching from upstream. The first warning sign came as a cool breeze moving down the canyon corridor. Small pieces of debris started drifting past them at ankle level, carried by flow preceding the approaching flood. In similar flash flood reports, this drifting debris is often the only warning available, as rising water can travel silently from upstream channels before suddenly entering a slot. Within minutes, the situation escalated dramatically. A shallow sheet of water appeared, followed quickly by a knee-high surge carrying sticks, silt, and organic matter. The sound level increased rapidly as the confined space amplified the roar of approaching water. Recognizing the danger, both men immediately turned to backtrack toward the canyon entrance. However, the pour-off they had easily descended earlier had now become a vertical curtain of water with rising depth at its base, cutting off their escape route. As they searched for alternative routes, a much higher surge entered the canyon system, filling the natural depressions and making footing increasingly unstable. Their attempts to climb the polished sandstone walls proved futile, as the rock surfaces offered no reliable handholds. The situation became critical when floating logs and rocks began moving with the current. Both men were pushed off balance in a narrow bend, where the canyon walls created a natural funnel. Hydraulic features formed at a large chockstone, creating turbulent flow patterns that made movement impossible. The flash flood maintained its high flow rate for several minutes before subsiding. As quickly as it had arrived, the water drained away through downstream channels, leaving an eerie silence. Search and rescue teams were notified when the men failed to return for an agreed check-in time. Teams located their vehicle at the trailhead and began searching at first light. an aerial team spotted clothing downstream, leading ground teams to access the area. Both victims were located in separate pools below a major choke point. The coroner's report listed the cause of death as drowning with blunt force trauma, consistent with being struck by debris while caught in confined water flow. Following this incident, land management agencies enhanced their seasonal closure advisories and added upstream weather monitoring links to trailhead information kiosks, emphasizing the extreme danger that flash floods pose in slot canyons. It was September 10th, 2017, when a late summer afternoon outing on Lake Michigan turned into a tragic battle against sudden weather near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Anton Mills, a 41-year-old delivery route coordinator known for his methodical approach to planning, had been maintaining his small outboard motorboat for several years. His partner, Maya Whitman, 39, worked as an office administrator and was careful and checklist-oriented, though she was comfortable removing her personal flotation device on calm days. The couple had planned this outing to take advantage of what appeared to be ideal late summer boating conditions. The morning weather forecast had called for fair conditions, with only an evening small craft advisory possible. Anton's boat was equipped with basic safety equipment, including 2 personal flotation devices, a handheld VHF radio, and functional navigation lights. What concerned Anton was that the boat's single bilge pump had been operating intermittently, sometimes spurting effectively, and other times struggling with flow consistency. The fuel tank was approximately half full, adequate for their planned route. As they departed the marina that afternoon, conditions on Lake Michigan appeared nearly perfect. The water was relatively calm with minimal wave action, and visibility was excellent. Maya, feeling comfortable with the stable conditions, had removed her personal flotation device and stored it within reach, but not immediately accessible. By late afternoon, a line of thunderstorms began forming on the western horizon. Around 4 o'clock, the wind began shifting from south to west, and short-period waves started building across the lake surface. The change in weather conditions was dramatic and swift. A gust front associated with the approaching storm system arrived quickly, causing waves to steepen rapidly to 3 and 4 feet in height. Whitecaps began forming, and visibility started decreasing as rain moved in. Recognizing the deteriorating conditions, Anton attempted to maneuver the boat to head directly into the waves. However, his timing was off, as he initiated a beam-to-bow turn, and a breaking wave struck the boat mid-maneuver when it was most vulnerable. The initial wave brought water over the gunnel, and the intermittent bilge pump could not maintain consistent flow. The boat began accumulating free surface water, reducing its stability and making it more susceptible to subsequent wave action. A second breaking wave struck while the boat was still recovering. The vessel rolled significantly to starboard, causing unsecured gear to shift and further decreasing stability. During this roll, the stern lifted and the propeller ventilated, causing the engine to over-rev and momentarily lose thrust at a critical moment. The combination of reduced stability, loss of propulsion, and continued wave action caused the boat to broach and eventually capsize. Both occupants were thrown into the choppy, wind-chilled water. Neither was wearing a personal flotation device at the moment of capsize. In the water, both attempted to reach the overturned boat hull, but wave action and wind-driven current began separating them from each other and from their vessel. A nearby recreational vessel observed the overturned boat and immediately reported the situation to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard responded with both a small rescue boat and helicopter crew. One victim was located unresponsive near the overturned hull, while the second was found downwind along the current line. The coroner's report determined both victims died from drowning, with hypothermia as a contributing factor due to prolonged exposure in wind-chilled water. The investigation identified key factors: sudden weather shift, timing error during the turn in steep chop, unsecured gear, and critically personal flotation devices not being worn. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.